Yeah, thank you. So yeah, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight. Pretty sure it was a long weekend with all these amazing guests. But yeah, so today I wanted to talk a bit about my learnings from building up Zapper during the food coin mania. Um, we first of all we were not expecting this huge boom, and I guess you'll see from the examples I'll show you. But first of all, for those that don't know what Zapper is, I guess I can give you guys a bit of an intro. So Zapper is a DeFi dashboard that allows you to view your assets across multiple protocols, and also makes it easier for users to enter some positions. So say, for example, you want to enter a liquidity pool on Uniswap, instead of you know um, doing multiple transactions to get into that pool, you can actually do it from one transaction on Zapper. So yeah, let me start up the presentation. All right, so yeah, a bit of history on Zapper. We launched officially on May 1st, 2020, from a merger between two projects, DeFi Snap and DeFi Zap. At that time, DeFi Snap was I guess like you could see your balances, but you couldn't do transactions. And DeFi Zap was really the transactional aspect. So we decided to merge because we thought that the fit was great. And at that point, we had about 1,500 daily dashboard loads. So people that went on the dashboard and loaded all of their balances across all their protocols to about 150,000 at the peak of the KuCoin mania. And that's daily. And also our transaction volume grew to 1 billion from May 1st. So definitely a lot of way more volume than we expected. And we definitely had to have a new system, because since there's so much money going through our zaps, we definitely needed to create the system where people were still confident in their money. And obviously the last thing we want is for money to get lost. So yeah, our situation around August. So like I pretty much say that August is like the start of the food coin mania, where you had yam and sushi, and that's where we saw like a huge amount of growth through Zapper. And at that time, we were only 3 full-time members, and our tech stack did not scale at all. So we're coming from like this small project. We only had a front end, and that front end was deployed on GitHub pages. So nothing to be able to scale with all the demand we were getting. And yeah, the amount of user requests skyrocketed. Like just in our Discord channel, we had about 50 to 100 bug or feature requests per day. So that was a huge, chunk of time that we had to dedicate fully to just those requests. And we were also in the process of raising a seed round. So all of this was happening at once, and we had a ton of balls to juggle. So I'm gonna kind of like give you guys an idea from two facets. So the first one is our scaling concerns from a product and team perspective, and the other is from a purely a tech perspective. So first, from a product perspective, Zapper was always about shipping really fast and always be the first to integrate a new protocol. So on that side, it was like, okay, there's all these food coins popping. How can we continue being the first to ship these new protocols without also, like take, for example, we were doing a ton of customer support. Like, how can we still maintain that speed while always also having all these new, I guess, responsibilities? And yeah, how can we answer all these support tickets? That was a huge concern for us as well. And how can we also onboard new core team members? Because at that time, we're trying to figure out how we could scale. And on top of that, we had to hire new people and get the right people in. And the bigger chunk, I guess, is from a tech perspective. How can we have Zapper.fi up at all times? Yeah, I don't know, probably some of you remember in 2017 with Coinbase being down a few times during the big market cycles. So for us, we wanted to kind of learn from that and make sure that, try to reduce the downtime for Zapper to zero. And how can we ensure that the website is still fast if we have like a ton of people going on it and just spamming calls? And the the other one was, how can we avoid spending all of our invested money on server costs and infrastructure? And further down the talk, I'll kind of talk a bit more about that because it was getting pretty expensive. So on the scaling product side, I'm pretty satisfied with how we were able to maintain the speed, and I kind of attribute it to different factors. And the first thing is we kind of have the Boy Scout rule, and the Boy Scout rule, for those that don't know what it is basically kind of leave the camp in a better shape than when you first arrived. And that was something that was super important, is that when we integrate a new protocol, what's like the small iteration we can add to make it faster to add a new protocol later. And every time we added a new protocol, we kind of added these new layers to make it much easier to add, and then could make us add these new things much faster. And the other thing was, don't be afraid to break things. And that was something that we kind of struggled with initially back in August. Is like, we're like, oh boy, like this could be potentially dangerous to push. Like we have a new protocol or a new something to test, and we can only know if it's live. And the danger with that is you can quickly go into kind of like over planning mode, and like I guess preparing too much, and drawing down these diagrams and making sure everything is going to be all right. But at the end of the day, you'll only know if it's in production. And that's kind of like why we maintained a pretty quick speed. So we push something, and almost immediately we kind of get all the feedback we needed to kind of iterate quickly. And yeah, like I previously said, don't over optimize or plan ahead too much, or DeFi will totally eat you alive. If you kind of wait and like you try to think your plan through, there's going to be something that's going to appear one day or the other. You probably all know how quickly DeFi changes, so you have to be very adaptable and not plan too far ahead. Now, obviously there's a really important distinction to make, especially towards smart contracts. There's clearly a difference between developing a front end, we're adding protocol configurations where people can view their balances, and actually build smart contracts where money will go through. And on the smart contract side, in the best of cases, like we would I guess inherit from all these Boy Scout rule, don't be afraid to break things. But it's very important to there's been so many hacks and so many problems with smart contracts, so that you have to be careful when you actually push that smart contract. And something we've kind of did was when we have new zaps, we push them internally and we extensively test them. We try to do as many transactions as we can, and we try to not do like too much, I guess, not say like planning, but like we'll try to write down all the potential edge cases, and then after that, we really test it, and then after that, once we are at confident stage, then we put it into production. On the other side, which I would say is the main aspect, our main challenge when we were actually scaling the product, is how can we scale our server infrastructure? At that time, we had only a front end, we had no back end, and our website was hosted by GitHub pages. And that didn't work at all, and we had to figure out a new solution. And the biggest problem we had is that when you use a DeFi product, what happens is in the back, the front end is doing Web3 calls directly to an Ethereum node to retrieve a user balance. So for example, on Zapper, when you land on the website, we call directly Ethereum nodes to get your balances. So all the calls are on chains. And we use, I guess, third-party node as a service providers to be able to access the on-chain data. And so at one point during the KuCoin mania, I think our all-time high, yeah, was 150 million Web3 calls in a day. And just to give you guys kind of an idea, on the right, I have the Infura pricing, and you see it's $1,000 per month, and that's for 5 million requests per day. So already there, we were like 20 times that. And it was totally unsustainable. So we had to figure out a way to cut costs there. And basically what we did is first is optimize the Web3 calls, which I'll show you a bit further. Two is the add conditional fetching. So basically, if you go on Zapper, we're not going to fetch everything all the time for all the users, right? There's scenarios where we don't need to fetch potentially everything for Uniswap if a user doesn't have a Uniswap balance. And also we added a server which caches balances per user for 30 seconds. And then after that, we started leveraging much more the graph for complex protocol fetches. So Uniswap is one, Balancer is one. And we try to leverage these as much as possible because at the end of the day, we're still a startup and we are trying to, survive as long as possible, or, kind of like manage our cash flow in a better manner. So yeah, so basically what happens when you land on Zapper is we fetch from an Ethereum node all of your wallet info from more than 20 protocols. And every protocol has a separate logic for fetching. And on average, each protocol that we fetch for does about 10 Web3 calls. So here I just did the basic calculation. So 10 Web3 calls times 20 protocols, that's about 200 Web3 calls per dashboard load per user. So we kind of had to figure out a way to diminish the number of Web3 calls per protocol. So an example here of Web3 call. Actually, I'm just going to stop sharing this presentation because I want to make sure that you have a good idea of what's a Web3 call. So let me go on Zapper and go on DeFi-snap.eth. All right, so just right here, there's a bunch of Web3 calls that are happening in the back to be able to fetch Uniswap, Aave, Curve, Balancer, Dodo, and Pickle for this account. And I'll just show you an example of one Web3 call. So I'm just going to check in the wallet. Okay, you see in the wallet, there's USDC. So I'm just going to go in Etherscan, and I'm going to search for the USDC contract. I'm going to click here. And it's loading. I'm going to go and read contract. Oops. There you go. All right, so if I want to get a balance for a user, for example, the DeFi Snap address, I'm just going to copy it here, and I'm going to paste it here, and I should get, yeah, okay, so here I get the response. This is the balance for USDC for this wallet. So if I go back to Zapper, I should see the same amount. So yeah, 131, 131. So here, what I just did is one Web3 call. Which is the balance of Web3 call. Now, let me go back to the presentation. So taking that in mind, one example is basically getting a curve balances for Y curve, which is one pool of curve, of the many pools that curve has. So first, we have to get the user curve LP token balance, so already one call there. Then we have to get the token supply because we need to know what's your share of that pool, right? If you have one LP token and the supply is 100, that means you have 1% of the pool. And then after that, we have to get the token reserves for that pool. So we have to get the YDAI balance inside the pool, the YUSDC, YUSDT, and YTUSD. And for each one of them, we have to do an additional Web3 call to get the conversion rate between YDAI and DAI and all the others. So that's two Web3 calls for each underlying token for a curve pool. So in total, 8 calls. +1 +1. So yeah, just to get the user balance for Y curve, it's 10 calls in total. And you can kind of multiply that for every curve pool. So curve was kind of one that was taking a huge chunk of our load. So we had to figure out a better way of optimizing it. And with the first strategy is to add conditional fetching strategies. So first, what we would do is get the user curve LP token balance, so one Web3 call. And then after that, we check if he actually has a balance in curve. Because if he doesn't, there's no need to do all the other calls, right? Because it's going to be 0 times all the other things. So there's really no need to call all the other stuff. If he does have the other stuff, then yeah, we go ahead and those calls. So there we could definitely save on a lot of Web3 calls because not everyone obviously has the Y curve pool token. So for them, we'd only be doing one call to check if they have a balance. Now, one thing that is super cool that we've discovered during when we were optimizing these contracts was Web3 batching. And basically with the Web3 library, it's possible to batch multiple Web3 calls in one. So here you kind of have an example where we have a get balance request and another balance call for another random contract here that they set. So here you can see there was 2 Web3 calls that were batched together. So adding these 2 strategies together, then we do one balance call, then we check if the balancer is more than 0. And then after that, we can batch all the calls for every this token supply, the DAI balance, Y DAI conversion rate, Y USDC, USDC conversion rate. And then after that, we only end up doing 1 Web3 call for the balance and 2 Web3 calls if they actually have Y curve pools. And then on top of that, what we could even do is bundle even those 2 calls together, right? We can have those 2 Web3 calls that we built and bundle them into one. And then what we can even do is bundle all the curve pools together. So we end up doing just 1 Web3 call for curve in total. So that's definitely a huge save as well. So yeah, we're able to bring the total Web3 call amount from 100 million to 15 million daily calls. And yeah, that was mostly a result of a combination between what I just showed, the Web3 call batching, our conditional fetching, and the other one, which is also very important, is the 30-second user balance caching. Now, I want to show you kind of let me go out of here and go back into Zapper. So for caching purposes, if I refresh the screen right now, since it's been more than 30 seconds, we're going to refetch the balances on chain. But if I go ahead and I refresh again, we're not, refetching those balances. The only scenario where we're actually refreshing, fetching the balances in that 30-second window is if you actually did a transaction. So we're actually able to subscribe to the Ethereum blockchain and check if there's a change in your ETH balance, right? Because if you did a transaction, your ETH balance is going to go down. So if your ETH balance goes down, well, then we just refetch everything. So yeah, that's another strategy that is super useful. And let me go back to the slide. I think that's, yeah, that was the last slide. So I guess from here, I can maybe show you an overview of Zapper, or we could do questions. Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick overview, and after that, we can leave some time for some questions. So yeah, here is the dashboard. Right here, we added let me show you a new feature we added recently, which was heavily requested, is if I go and manage addresses and I add, for example, vitalik.eth. You can see here, there's a bundle button. And what's cool with this is that I could click on both. And then that will be used in a bundle view. Because often, wow, Vitalik has a lot in this wallet. But often people have more than one wallet, so this is super useful just for accounting purposes. Is you can build a view that bundles multiple accounts into one, and it also like bundles the list here. So you see, Vitalik has a lot of KNC and OMG, and other features we've kind of been working on. If you go in the invest page, so yeah, in the invest page here we have a block of your current investments that we have actions enabled. So you can go, for example, here, Do ETH. I can go click on this and claim the rewards here that I stake. And I can also unstake the pool. For these other pools here, I could withdraw and select the output, right? So here I could be, okay, I'm going to withdraw my pool tokens into ETH. And so that would be about 0.1 ETH. We also have a new table, which is staking opportunities. Basically, it tells you which of the pools here that you can actively stake to get more yield. So for this one here, the ETH USDC pool, I can stake to earn uni tokens. And under that, we kind of have all of the different zaps that we offer. We have like 21 pages here, so about 210 zap opportunities, and constantly adding more. We're currently working on adding Dodo in the opportunity table and SushiSwap as well. Another new feature, well, relatively new feature, is we've added an exchange. Basically, the exchange, how it works is that it aggregates exchanges between Uniswap and Balancer. So in this case, it finds the best rate. So from ETH to USDC, the best rate is Uniswap. And let's say, for example, if I go for another token, YFV here, in this case, this is more of an interesting one. So it tells me that the best exchange route is to go from ETH to YFV, and after that, go from USD to ETH. So if I actually go through with this transaction, what it will do is it will actually do this swap and then this swap into one transaction. So you don't have to like do multiple actions. So yeah, this is kind of like a really quick overview. I see that there's 7 minutes left, and so I want to make sure I answer your questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, so the first question is, does Zapper log user activity? I imagine you mean like, do we put this in a database? Is that what you mean? In the case that's what you mean, no, we don't store anything in the database. We don't log user activity either. Basically, what we do is we cache your balances for 30 seconds, and that's it. And the only thing that's cached is an address with your balances. There's nothing else that's cached. The second question we have is, what are the future features that will make Zapper a must-have for DeFi? Well, that's a really good question, and I can maybe kind of talk about the new features we have in the pipeline. So one of them is we really want to help people with yield farming or liquidity mining, and be able to, one of the big problems that people have is they often have to leave to different UIs to be able to stake and then claim rewards. So that's a part that we definitely want to add focus on. And then another thing that I think is, super important for us to do is we've been looking to, make Zapper much more, I guess, friendly for the person outside of DeFi. We've been working with a lot of people on this to, get their feedback. Because I mean, for me, I've been in this for, a long time. So this is kind of obvious to me, but it's very hard to go back into the perspective of someone that's newer to DeFi. So also kind of like, making it easy for people to come into Zapper and, start doing transactions. And that's something that's been really interesting, because we've noticed from the huge growth we've had in August, a lot of new people entered DeFi. Like that was clearly the case. And what we've noticed is like a lot of them have sticked, but there's still some people that aren't sticking because there's a complexity layer that's still there. But eventually, we'll get past that. So we're constantly working to kind of expand the ease of use of DeFi and making it gradually better and better. So that's something we're definitely working on. And the other thing that we're working on that we're really excited about is we're currently working on the Zapper Protocol. Now, I can't discuss too much about it because it's not launched yet, but we really want Zapper to take the community approach of, we know that Zapper won't be able to build all the possible Zaps and also all the, potential, wallet integrations, protocol integrations. So we want to open that up to the community, basically. Let me know if you had other questions. If you don't, I guess we could end the talk here. You do not agree that staking could be dangerous? Okay, so I guess what you mean is, yeah, so there's definitely aspect of staking that can be dangerous, but it depends. So I can kind of shed a bit more light on our process to add staking opportunities on Zapper. So the first one is that what we've seen mainly is that there's 4 main staking contracts that are out there, and they've been pretty vetted. So the first one was the synthetics reward contracts that was basically used for most of the food coins. So we could safely add it because it was literally a copy paste of that contract. So for us on that side, it wasn't dangerous for us to add at all. And then after that, there was the Master Chef contracts that came with sushi. Initially, we're kind of careful to add that staking, but since then it's been pretty well vetted, so it's safe to use now. And also the other thing is we're very careful with the protocols we add to Zapper because it's important for us to maintain this kind of respected and trusted solution for DeFi. And one thing we're kind of working towards is we want to remove the power that the founder, like the core team has of, deciding on which opportunity to add to staking, because that's something that we're not necessarily comfortable in, because we don't want to be the ones that basically decide, oh, we're going to add this token because it's cool. Like we don't think it should be that way. It should be opened up to the community, and the community should be able to vote on these tokens and these new staking opportunities. And yeah, so there's definitely some staking contracts that are out there that are dangerous, and if they are, we aren't adding them to Zapper. Yeah. After how long does it become safe? It depends. It depends. Like for the synthetics reward contracts, it was safe from the start because it was heavily used. MasterChef, it took a bit of time before people were kind of confident in its security. But honestly, it depends. It really depends. But what I can say is that staking contracts are, in general, very simple. So they're very simple to look at from a technical eye. So someone that can come in can look at it and be, okay, it's definitely safe. So usually it's pretty quick, right? It's not like a full-blown protocol with a bunch of different interactions with other protocols. Usually they're pretty simple. It's like you add a token and there's X amount that's unlocked every block. So they're usually not that complicated. Do we have other questions? All right, so I think we can end it here since there's no more questions. And yeah, we've actually hit the 30-minute mark. Oh, we have another question. Just like chains are safe till they're not, sometimes years, contracts could become unsafe. Well, contracts, they're immutable. Well, I mean, a lot of contracts, I mean, they're there on chain and they don't change. I guess the thing you have to check is like, is it possible for someone and then Min to come in and change the contract? But if there's none of these controls, the contract can't change. So whatever happens in the future, the contract will work as intended. So it wouldn't become unsafe for any reason other than an admin that has control to actually change it.
Seb, are you done with questions? I think another one just came in.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Or two. So last question, and then we'll transition.
All right. So, okay, two questions. Vulnerability could be found much later, right? Yeah, it's possible for a vulnerability to be found later, but as a like, take for example, the I guess simplest case is synthetics, the rewards contract. This is like a really simple contract that has no admin control whatsoever, and it can't be changed, and it's very simple. So, and it's been tested. Like there's been 250 million, like even more than that, that's passed through this type of contract. So in that case, it's very, very, very unlikely that there's a vulnerability that can be found much later. The other question is, will Zapper Protocol allow something similar to Full Combo? Yes, actually, yeah. Basically allowing people to build zaps from pieces that we built, and also allowing people to build, their own Legos that they can put together to create a new zap.
Awesome. Thanks, Seb. This was a really great talk. We're going to transition to our next session now. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. Bye.